Hi, I'm Trextyn from Marion Public Library, and lately I've been reading Sword Heart by T. Kingfisher. Sword Heart is a pretty steady-paced story in a fantasy setting of multiple gods, kind of old-timey, in which Hala is I think 30 or 40-year-old woman who lives with a family member she was taking care of. He passes away and leaves everything to her, and her family doesn't like that, and hijinks kind of ensue when they try to lock her in her room. She comes across a sword of his that she thought was just a regular sword, but is actually a magic sword that turns into a man when she draws it. So he becomes her bodyguard due to a magical contract, and they have to go on an adventure. Use the word adventure lightly because they're really just going to like one or two towns over, but they go on this journey to essentially get a fantasy lawyer and bring them back to make sure the inheritance goes to Hala, as it should. On their journey, Hala and Sarkis have a really funny, banter-filled dynamic the whole time. There are one or two other characters that join the crew on the way that really add to that dynamic, so if that's something that you think is really fun, like I do, I think this is a really good book to pick up. Most of T. Kingfisher's books have that from what I've read so far. The story goes back and forth, mostly chapter by chapter, between Hala and Sarkis's perspectives. You get a glimpse into both of their minds during their chapters, and you get to see what they look like from the other character's point of view. There are some romantic feelings and tension in this book pretty quickly. I found myself rooting for the two main characters to have a happy ending together, even though they're not really thinking about that by that point in the book. There are a lot of kind of moments where the book can be tense and kind of suspenseful. The book does not shy away from serious moments just because it is funny. It's mostly funny and light, even though there are some kind of scary moments in there. So between all of the cast of characters, you've got some who are going to be sassy, some are a little more brooding than others in kind of a humorous way. I think they're all pretty quirky. They've all got like a weird thing going on, and they like to tease each other, so that's fun. Some of them are really way more straight-laced than others, but for the most part, I think all of the characters in this kind of have one or two things about them that are played up for the sake of being funny. So I've got two read-alikes for Sword Heart, if you liked it like I did. This one, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, is going to be good for people who enjoy the romance aspect of Sword Heart. This one has Emily Wilde. She is the foremost expert on fairies in her world, which is mostly our world with a slight fantasy spin. And she has moved to a small village to research the most elusive kind of fairy, and she has to deal with her colleague and rival, who is very charming, showing up and kind of getting in the way, where they have to, work together and get in each other's way while trying to solve one or more mysteries. The main character duo has a very similar dynamic to the duo in Sword Heart. The main female lead is kind of viewed as awkward but capable, which is very similar to Hala in Sword Heart, where her companion is not similar to the companion in Sword Heart. He's very charming in this one, whereas Sarkis is very straight-laced and brooding. But the dynamic between the two is very similar. If you are a fan of Sword Heart but don't really like the romance aspect, I think The Tainted Cup is a good read-alike for that. Same kind of dynamic. It has, the two main characters, but this one is much more of a detective fantasy style novel. Those two characters do have a fun dynamic between them, but there is not a romance aspect in this one. It does have interesting world building like the other two, and an interesting magic system. So I would personally, romance is not always something I like to read, and I think this is a good pickup for people who can relate to that. Thanks for watching. You can find these books at Marion Public Library. We'll be happy to help you if you show up looking for them, and tell us what you're reading in the comments. We want to see.